What if I told you? You could be doing everything right, earning more than ever, and still becoming poorer without realizing it? Not because of inflation. Not because of bad decisions. Not because you're doing something wrong. But because the value of money itself is changing. Right now. Quietly. Without most people noticing. And the strange part is, this has happened before. Over and over again in history. In some countries, people spent decades saving money, only to watch it buy less every single year. And once you understand it, you start seeing money completely differently. Most people think money works like this. You earn it. You save it. You build wealth. Simple. But there's one problem. What if the money you are saving is slowly losing its purchasing power every single year? Not overnight. Not in a dramatic crash. But gradually. Think about it like this. If the amount of money in a system increases, but the amount of goods and services stays the same, then each unit of money becomes slightly weaker. Not useless. Just less powerful. And that's where most people get confused. Because the number in their bank account goes up, but their lifestyle doesn't always improve at the same speed. Now here's what actually causes it. When economies slow down, governments and central banks face a problem. Businesses struggle. People lose jobs. Markets become unstable. At that point, there are two choices. 1. Do nothing, and let the system correct itself. Or 2. Intervene, and try to prevent collapse. Most of the time, they intervene. They create more money. They inject liquidity into the system. Through banks. Through stimulus. Through financial support programs. And in the short term, it works. Markets recover. Confidence returns. Crisis slows down. But there's a hidden cost. Because creating more money doesn't create more value. It only spreads existing value across more units. So each unit becomes slightly weaker. Not instantly. Not visibly. But consistently. And that's where the system slowly changes. Here's where it gets interesting. If they stop creating money, the economy can fall back into crisis. But if they continue, the value of money keeps weakening. So what happens? They keep going. Not because it's perfect, but because it's the least painful option available. And over time, a temporary solution becomes permanent behavior. What begins as emergency help can quietly become a permanent addiction. This is how systems slowly shift. Not through collapse, but through dependence. And once that happens, every new crisis requires a bigger response than the last. More support, more liquidity, more money, until eventually, the system starts relying on it. We saw this clearly in 2008. The global financial system was close to breaking. Banks were failing. Credit froze. Confidence disappeared. So central banks stepped in. They introduced something called quantitative easing. In simple terms, they created new money to stabilize the system. At the time, it was called temporary, a crisis response. And it worked. Markets recovered. The system stabilized. But something changed underneath. Because once the system adjusted to that support, it became harder to remove it. So when the next slowdown came, they used it again, and again, and again. Over time, what was supposed to be emergency support became normal policy. That's the pattern. Not collapse. Dependence. Now bring this back to you. Because this isn't just about governments or banks. It shows up in everyday life. You get a raise. You switch jobs. You start earning more. On paper, you're doing better. But then something feels off. Groceries cost more. Rent increases. Fuel becomes expensive. Everyday life feels heavier. And slowly, you realize something. Your money is not going as far as it used to. Imagine someone who's saved for 10 years, doing everything right, only to realize those savings now buy less than when they started. That's the effect. Not sudden, not dramatic, but consistent. Because when more money enters the system, prices adjust over time. And here's the key point. If your income grows slower than money supply, you lose purchasing power, even if your bank balance increases. This is what people call the invisible tax. No bill, no warning, no announcement, but real impact. And it doesn't hit everyone equally. People with fixed incomes feel it first. Cash savers feel it over time. Asset holders often adjust differently. That's why it feels confusing. Because nothing looks broken. Everything still works. But value is quietly shifting underneath. Most people measure money incorrectly. They look at numbers. How much do I have? But the real question is, what can it buy? Because those two things are not the same. If your money grows 5%, but prices grow 8%, you didn't gain. You lost. You just didn't feel it. And that illusion is what keeps most people stuck. Because the system doesn't show you the loss directly. It spreads it over time. Quietly. Gradually. Until one day, you look back and realize the money didn't disappear. It just stopped working the way it used to. So here's where we are. A system under pressure. An economy supported by expanding money. And a pattern history has shown before. This doesn't mean collapse is coming tomorrow. It doesn't mean panic. But it does mean something important. The rules can change. Not loudly. Not suddenly. But slowly enough that most people don't notice. Until it's already done. Because the biggest financial shifts in history don't feel dramatic when they happen. They feel normal. Right up until the moment people realize something has changed. So the real question isn't, is money being created? The real question is, do you understand what that means before the effects become obvious? Because once you understand the system, you stop being surprised by it. And in a world where value can shift quietly, awareness becomes an advantage. If this opened your eyes, comment aware below. I want to know how many people actually see what's happening. And if you want to understand money before most people do, subscribe now. And turn on the bell icon so you never miss our upcoming videos. Thank you for watching. We meet again in the next video. Take care and goodbye.